India, as a rising global power, has built strong diplomatic ties with many nations. However, not all relationships remain smooth. In 2025, India faces tensions with several countries due to political disputes, trade conflicts, and geopolitical rivalries. From diplomatic standoffs with Canada over Khalistan to strained relations with Turkey over Kashmir, these issues have impacted India's foreign policy. Some nations have aligned with India's regional rivals, while others have raised concerns over domestic policies. In this video, we will explore the 10 countries that have bad relations with India in 2025, examining the key reasons behind these tensions and their impact on global diplomacy. Stay tuned to find out how these conflicts are shaping India's position on the world stage. 10. Turkey. India-Turkey relations in 2025 remain strained due to geopolitical rivalries, Turkey's stance on Kashmir, and its close ties with Pakistan. Turkey has consistently raised the Kashmir issue on international platforms, often criticizing India's policies in the region. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has openly supported Pakistan's stance, calling for international intervention, something India strongly opposes. These repeated statements have led to diplomatic protests from India and a cooling of bilateral ties. In recent years, Turkey has increased its defense cooperation with Pakistan, supplying drones and military equipment. This has raised concerns in India, as it strengthens Pakistan's military capabilities. Additionally, reports of Turkish-backed organizations funding Islamist groups in South Asia have added another layer of tension. Economic ties have also been affected by political differences. While trade between India and Turkey continues, India has taken steps to reduce its dependence on Turkish goods. Turkish companies operating in India have faced regulatory hurdles, and India has explored alternative markets to avoid reliance on Turkish imports. Despite these challenges, cultural and historical ties between India and Turkey remain strong, with tourism and educational exchanges continuing. However, unless Turkey changes its stance on Kashmir and reduces its defense cooperation with Pakistan, its relations with India are unlikely to improve significantly in 2025. 9. Qatar. India-Qatar relations in 2025 have faced setbacks due to diplomatic disputes, labor issues, and Qatar's perceived alignment with anti-India elements. One of the biggest diplomatic tensions arose from Qatar's handling of Indian expatriates, particularly after cases where Indian workers faced legal and human rights challenges. The arrest and sentencing of Indian naval veterans in 2023 created significant strain, with India protesting their treatment. While some issues were resolved, lingering concerns over the treatment of Indian workers in Qatar persist. With nearly 800,000 Indians living in Qatar, labor rights and visa policies remain a sensitive topic. Another major issue is Qatar's media influence. Al Jazeera, a Qatar-based news network, has been accused by India of biased reporting on issues such as Kashmir, Indian domestic policies, and communal tensions. India has often criticized Qatar for allowing platforms that promote anti-India narratives, especially regarding religious freedoms and minority rights. Geopolitically, Qatar's close ties with Pakistan have raised concerns in India. Qatar has hosted meetings involving Pakistani leaders and has been perceived as indirectly supporting narratives that oppose India's interests. Additionally, Qatar's financial contributions to Islamic organizations have led to allegations of funding groups that have links to radical elements, further straining relations. Despite these tensions, energy trade remains strong, with Qatar being a key supplier of LNG, liquefied natural gas, to India. However, without addressing diplomatic and labor-related concerns, India-Qatar relations will continue to face challenges in 2025. 8. Indonesia. India and Indonesia have historically shared strong cultural and economic ties, but in 2025, their relationship faces tensions due to geopolitical shifts, trade disputes, and religious sensitivities. One of the primary sources of friction is Indonesia's growing alignment with China. In recent years, Indonesia has deepened economic and defense cooperation with Beijing, including participation in China's Belt and Road Initiative, BRI. This has concerned India, as it sees China's increasing presence in the Indo-Pacific as a strategic threat. While both India and Indonesia are maritime powers in the region, their strategic priorities have diverged, particularly in relation to China's territorial ambitions in the South China Sea. Another issue is trade-related conflicts. Despite being major trading partners, Indonesia's restrictions on Indian agricultural products and palm oil trade disputes have caused friction. India has also raised concerns over its trade deficit with Indonesia and has sought to renegotiate trade terms. These economic disagreements have slowed down bilateral engagement. Religious tensions have also played a role in straining relations. Instances of communal unrest in Indonesia, particularly involving its Hindu minority, have sparked protests in India. Similarly, Indonesian reactions to events in India, particularly regarding policies affecting its Muslim population, have led to diplomatic disagreements. Despite these challenges, India and Indonesia continue to engage in regional forums like ASEAN and the Indo-Pacific Strategic Framework. However, unless trade disputes and geopolitical differences are addressed, their relations may remain somewhat strained in 2025. 7. Bangladesh. India and Bangladesh have historically enjoyed close ties, but in 2025, their relationship has faced challenges due to border conflicts, water disputes, and shifting political dynamics. One major source of tension is illegal migration. India has strengthened its border security to curb the flow of undocumented migrants from Bangladesh, which has led to diplomatic disagreements. Clashes between border forces have occasionally flared up, further straining relations. Water-sharing disputes have also remained unresolved, particularly over the Teesta River. Bangladesh has repeatedly urged India to finalize an agreement to ensure a fair distribution of water, but political and regional considerations within India have delayed progress. This issue has led to frustration in Dhaka and has been a major point of contention in bilateral talks. Geopolitically, Bangladesh's growing economic ties with China have concerned India. Bangladesh has welcomed Chinese investments in infrastructure projects, which India perceives as Beijing expanding its influence in South Asia. While Bangladesh has tried to maintain a balanced approach, India remains wary of China's involvement in its neighboring country. Despite these challenges, trade and cultural ties between India and Bangladesh remain strong. The two countries continue to collaborate on energy projects, connectivity initiatives, and regional security. However, unless border tensions and water-sharing disputes are resolved, diplomatic relations will remain somewhat strained in 2025. 6. United States. Despite being strategic partners, India and the United States have faced diplomatic challenges in 2025 due to trade disputes, visa policies, and geopolitical differences. While both nations continue to cooperate on defense, technology, and counterterrorism, certain disagreements have strained their relationship. One major issue is the U.S.'s increasing scrutiny of India's human rights record. The Biden administration has raised concerns about religious freedoms, press restrictions, and policies like the Citizenship Amendment Act, CAA. These criticisms have led to strong pushback from the Indian government, which sees them as interference in its domestic affairs. Trade relations have also been a source of friction. The U.S. has imposed restrictions on Indian pharmaceutical exports, while India has maintained tariffs on American agricultural products. Negotiations for a new trade agreement have been slow, with disagreements over digital taxation and intellectual property rights. Another point of contention is India's relationship with Russia. Despite Western sanctions, India has continued to import Russian oil and military equipment, which has drawn criticism from Washington. The U.S. has pressured India to reduce its dependence on Russian defense supplies, but India has resisted, citing its long-standing strategic ties with Moscow. Despite these issues, both nations continue to collaborate on security, space exploration, and Indo-Pacific strategy. However, without resolving trade and geopolitical differences, India-US relations will remain complex in 2025. 5. United Kingdom. India-UK relations in 2025 are characterized by diplomatic tensions, trade disputes, and disagreements over political issues. While historical ties and economic interests keep both nations engaged, certain political issues continue to strain relations. One of the biggest challenges in the relationship is the presence of Khalistani separatist groups in the UK. India has expressed frustration over the British government's perceived inaction against pro-Khalistan activists, particularly after attacks on Indian diplomatic missions in London. The UK's tolerance of protests calling for an independent Khalistan has led to repeated diplomatic complaints from India. Trade relations have also faced obstacles. The much-anticipated India-UK Free Trade Agreement, FTA, has been delayed due to disagreements on tariffs, labor mobility, and visa policies. India has sought better access for its skilled professionals, while the UK has been reluctant to ease visa regulations. Additionally, Britain's criticism of India's human rights policies, including concerns about religious freedoms and press freedom, has irritated the Indian government. Despite these tensions, economic ties remain strong, with significant Indian investments in the UK and vice versa. The Indian diaspora in Britain also plays a crucial role in cultural and business relations. However, unless political disagreements, especially on Khalistan and trade, are addressed, relations between India and the UK will continue to face challenges in 2025. 4. Maldives. India-Maldives relations in 2025 have deteriorated due to rising anti-India sentiments in Malé and the Maldivian government's increasing alignment with China. The election of President Mohamed Muizzu in 2023 marked a shift in foreign policy, with his administration pushing an India Out campaign that called for the removal of Indian military personnel stationed in the Maldives. This move was seen as a direct challenge to India's influence in the region. India has historically been a key security and economic partner for the Maldives, providing medical aid, infrastructure support, and military assistance. However, under Muizzu's leadership, Maldives has pivoted towards China, signing new agreements under the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, for infrastructure development. India views this shift as part of China's broader strategy to expand its influence in the Indian Ocean, which poses a strategic threat to New Delhi. Public tensions escalated in early 2024 when Maldivian government officials made derogatory remarks about Indian tourists, leading to a social media backlash and calls for an Indian boycott of Maldives tourism. While economic ties, particularly in tourism and trade, remain important, political relations have suffered. Despite these setbacks, India continues to engage with the Maldives diplomatically. However, if the Maldivian government deepens its partnership with China and maintains an anti-India stance, relations between the two nations will remain tense in 2025. 3. Canada. India-Canada relations in 2025 remain strained due to political tensions, diplomatic disputes, and trade restrictions. The primary cause of friction is Canada's perceived support for Khalistani separatist movements, which India sees as a threat to its sovereignty. The controversy escalated in 2023 when Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau accused India of being involved in the killing of Khalistani activist Hardeep Singh Nijjar. This led to diplomatic expulsions, travel restrictions, and a sharp decline in bilateral engagement. India has repeatedly urged Canada to take action against pro-Khalistan extremists who have targeted Indian diplomatic missions and organized anti-India protests. However, Canada has defended these groups under the pretext of free speech, further straining relations. Indian authorities have also been frustrated by the slow progress in addressing visa delays and immigration issues affecting Indian students and professionals in Canada. Trade between the two countries has suffered as a result of these tensions. Negotiations for a free trade agreement, FTA, which were once promising, have stalled due to political disagreements. India has imposed restrictions on certain Canadian agricultural products, and Canada has responded with measures affecting Indian exports. Despite the tensions, people-to-people ties remain strong due to the large Indian diaspora in Canada. However, unless the two governments can resolve their political disputes, especially regarding the Khalistan issue, India-Canada relations are unlikely to improve significantly in 2025. 2. Pakistan. India and Pakistan's relationship in 2025 remains hostile, shaped by long-standing disputes over Kashmir, cross-border terrorism, and regional geopolitics. Despite occasional diplomatic talks, the two nuclear-armed neighbors have been unable to establish lasting peace due to deep-rooted conflicts. One of the biggest points of contention is Pakistan's continued support for terrorist organizations operating from its territory. Groups like Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed have been linked to attacks in India, prompting military responses. Cross-border skirmishes along the line of control, LOC, are frequent, with both sides blaming each other for ceasefire violations. Pakistan's diplomatic efforts to internationalize the Kashmir issue, often with support from China and Turkey, have further aggravated tensions. India remains firm on Kashmir being an internal matter and strongly opposes foreign intervention. The abrogation of Article 370 in 2019, which removed Jammu and Kashmir's special status, continues to be a major diplomatic rift between the two countries. Economic relations between India and Pakistan remain minimal, with trade being heavily restricted. Water-sharing disputes over the Indus Waters Treaty have resurfaced, with India exploring projects that Pakistan views as a threat to its water supply. Meanwhile, Pakistan's deepening alliance with China, especially through CPEC, has heightened India's security concerns. Despite these tensions, some back-channel diplomacy efforts have been attempted, and limited cultural exchanges still exist. However, without a significant policy shift or resolution on Kashmir and terrorism, India-Pakistan relations will remain adversarial in 2025. 1. China. India and China continue to have a tense relationship in 2025 due to unresolved border disputes, economic competition, and geopolitical rivalry. The ongoing military standoffs along the line of actual control, LAC, particularly in Ladakh and Arunachal Pradesh, have fueled mistrust. Despite multiple rounds of diplomatic talks, occasional skirmishes and infrastructure development by both sides in disputed regions have kept tensions high. The Galwan Valley clash of 2020 still influences public sentiment, with India increasing military preparedness along the border. Economically, trade imbalances remain a significant concern for India. China continues to be India's largest trading partner, but India has sought to reduce dependence on Chinese imports by promoting domestic manufacturing. Additionally, cybersecurity threats and alleged Chinese espionage activities targeting Indian institutions have led to growing security concerns. Geopolitically, China's increasing influence in South Asia through the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, is seen as an attempt to encircle India. China's deepening ties with Pakistan, including investments in the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, CPEC, passing through Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, POK, have further worsened relations. China's assertiveness in the Indo-Pacific has also brought India closer to the Quad alliance, US. Japan, Australia, which Beijing views as an attempt to counter its regional dominance. Meanwhile, China's blocking of India's attempts to gain a permanent seat in the UN Security Council and its stance on issues like terrorism sanctions at the UN have been additional sources of friction. Despite these tensions, both countries continue to engage diplomatically and maintain trade relations. However, unless border disputes are resolved and economic ties become more balanced, India-China relations will likely remain adversarial in 2025.